In less than 24 hours, Sherrone Moore went from Michigan's golden boy to sitting in a county jail while the whole country argues about what really happened. We're talking about a 39-year-old head coach with a national title ring, the first black head coach in Michigan football history, a guy with a beautiful family, 3 daughters, and one of the most powerful jobs in college sports. One morning, he's breaking down bowl prep and talking about the future of the program. By that night, he's fired with cause for an inappropriate relationship with a staff member and booked into the Washtenaw County Jail as a suspect in an alleged assault. And if you were only half paying attention when the news originally broke, you probably saw the headlines, but you didn't see how messy the story underneath really is, or how long some people say the smoke has been there. So let's talk about what we actually know, what's still just rumors, and how a coach with everything managed to crash out in one of the wildest 24-hour spirals college football has ever seen. For a lot of Michigan fans, this whole thing hits harder because of where Sherrone Moore started. He wasn't some outsider parachuted in for a paycheck. He played offensive line at Oklahoma, paid his dues as an assistant at Louisville and Central Michigan, and then came to Ann Arbor back in 2018. Year after year, he climbed the ladder. Tight ends coach, co-offensive coordinator, full offensive coordinator. When Jim Harbaugh started catching suspensions, Moore was the one the university trusted enough to hand the headset to. You remember those games. Harbaugh sidelined during the sign-stealing scandal, Michigan fans on edge, the national media circling like vultures. Moore steps in and beats Penn State on the road, handles Maryland, then delivers that emotional, tear-filled post-game after a dramatic win over Ohio State. Those clips went viral for a reason. People saw a guy who was emotional, loyal, and ride or die for his players. Then Michigan wins the national championship. Harbaugh bolts for the NFL and the Chargers job. And instead of going outside the building, the school says, "Nah, we've already got our guy." They promote Moore. It's a history-making moment. First black head coach in program history. The players are hyped, recruits are locked in, and the fan base is dreaming about a decade of stability. On paper, it looked good. He goes 9-3 this season, racks up a 16-plus win record in a short window, and even grabs another win over Ohio State along the way. But that blowout loss to the Buckeyes in 2025 leaves a bad taste in everybody's mouth. And behind the scenes, a lot more than football is starting to go wrong. From the outside, it looked like a coach who just needed to tweak his playbook. But inside the building, people now say there were signs that something way bigger was getting ready to explode. The first real crack that the public sees is the university's official statement. Michigan doesn't ease into it. They don't call it mutually parting ways. They don't use that soft, PR-friendly language. Athletic Director Ward Manuel drops a statement saying, "Sherrone Moore has been terminated, with cause, effective immediately." The school says a university investigation found credible evidence that he engaged in an inappropriate relationship with a staff member and that this behavior is a clear violation of policy. Michigan adds they have zero tolerance for that kind of conduct. Those 2 words, "with cause," are huge. That's not just "you're fired." That's "you're fired and we're not paying you the tens of millions you would have gotten in a buyout." It means the school feels like whatever they found is serious enough to hold up in a legal fight. They know this is going to be messy, and they're planting their flag anyway. In that same wave of reporting, the school quietly announces that assistant head coach Biff Poggi will take over as interim. Again, this is the same guy who already stepped in earlier in the season when Moore was suspended for his role in the Connor Stallion sign-stealing saga. So even as the news drops, you can tell they had the emergency plan ready. By the time that statement hits your phone, social media is on fire. ESPN, CNN, all the big outlets push alerts. Sherrone Moore fired for inappropriate relationship with staffer. Rival fans are cracking jokes. Michigan fans are stunned. And a lot of people assume that's the whole story. But that was only the first half of his day, because while those tweets are going up, while reporters are still trying to figure out who the staff member even is, police in a quiet chunk of Michigan are already moving on something much darker. Later that afternoon, Pittsfield Township Police say they get a call to the 3000 block of Ann Arbor-Saline Road. The official statement is dry. They're responding to investigate an alleged assault. They don't name Moore. They don't name a victim. They just say a suspect is taken into custody, that the situation does not appear to be random, there's no ongoing threat to the community, and that the suspect is lodged at the Washtenaw County Jail while prosecutors review possible charges. Around the same time, the Saline Police Department puts out its own statement. They say they helped locate and detain former University of Michigan football coach Sherrone Moore, and then turned him over to Pittsfield Township for investigation into potential charges. They don't give a ton of extra detail, but at that point, you can connect the dots. The suspect Pittsfield is talking about and the guy Saline says they detained are the same person. Later that night, jail records show Moore officially booked in, sometime around 10 p.m. No public list of charges yet, no bond posted, no court dates on the docket, just the cold reality that this isn't just an HR problem anymore. This is a criminal investigation. And that's the part a lot of people missed. They saw the ESPN alert about the firing at 4-something in the afternoon, checked Twitter, saw a couple jokes and takes, and went back to work. By the time the jail booking hit the news later that evening, the narrative had already moved on. Most folks just filed it away as, dang, he got arrested too, and kept scrolling. But if you were on Reddit, on college football message boards, or just plugged into the Michigan rumor mill while this was happening, you saw a completely different version of events starting to spread. One that makes that simple, alleged assault line sound way more chaotic. Now, before we go any further, this part is important. What I'm about to talk about lives in that gray area between rumor and reporting. Some of it comes from citizen journalists and posts that claim to have inside sources. Some of it comes from fans who say they heard things directly from people in the area. None of it, as of this video being recorded, has been fully laid out in any official police report that the public can read. So I'm going to treat it like what it is: speculation, allegations, a storyline that might line up with the facts once everything's unsealed, or might not. One version of that story is captured in a viral screenshot that's been bouncing around social media. In that post, the author claims that former Michigan head coach Sherrone Moore was placed in protective custody after allegedly threatening during a dispute with his wife. According to that description, he then drives to the home of an assistant he's allegedly having an affair with, breaks in, and holds a knife to his own throat while refusing to leave. The post says he reportedly threatens to kill himself and the staffer, and that authorities later intercept him at a local church after tracking his phone. It's a shocking mental picture. A coach who was on national TV crying happy tears after beating Ohio State just a year earlier, now allegedly standing in someone's living room with a knife to his neck, talking about ending his life, and maybe hers too, and then being tracked down and scooped up at a church. Again, that's not from a police affidavit. That's not something a judge read out loud in court. That's from a social post that lines up with what other rumor accounts and Reddit users have been whispering for the last 24 hours. Reddit threads add even more dramatic layers on top of that. Some posters claim Moore told his wife he wanted to kill himself, then drove to the alleged affair partner's place and threatened her. Others say he had a knife when he showed up, that officers on scene described the situation as extremely volatile. There are comments saying the staffer might be pregnant, or that she had already gone to the university with irrefutable documentation of what had been going on. One local writer says Moore was put on some kind of mental health watch after being taken into custody. And inside those same threads, you see people use a word that never really makes it into the mainstream headlines. They say he crashed out. It's that phrase people usually save for rappers or street stories, when someone has everything going for them and then makes one impulsive, self-destructive decision that blows up their entire life in a single moment. Fans in those threads are basically saying, this is what crashing out looks like when you're a college head coach. Now here's where the story shifts from the chaos of Wednesday to the timeline people say existed long before the public found out. Because on Reddit, message boards, and even a few plugged-in college football accounts, fans are saying the same thing. This didn't come out of nowhere. Users claim rumors have been floating around for weeks and weeks. A few even say agents for coaching candidates had already been expecting the Michigan job to open before Moore ever got fired. Some posters swear the affair had been whispered about since October. Others say university donors recently tightened the purse strings, like they knew something was brewing behind closed doors. One of the most interesting points people make is this: Michigan waited until after signing day. You see that comment over and over. Whether it's coincidence or strategy, fans believe the school waited to secure the 2026 recruiting class before making the final move. Some say that lines up perfectly with Michigan's history. Handle the damage behind the scenes first, make the public announcement second. Then there's a comment referencing a local insider. Someone claiming that the staffer involved had already brought irrefutable documentation to university leadership earlier in the day. If that part is true, it explains why the firing happened so fast, and why Ward Manuel's statement came out with unusually strong, direct wording. From the outside, it looks like a sudden explosion. From the inside, according to these threads, it looks more like a slow leak that finally turned into a blowout. And this is where the psychology of the fan base kicks in. Michigan is one of the biggest brands in college football. Every move gets analyzed under a microscope. So when people see a scandal this big unfold, the first question becomes, what did the school know, and when did they know it? Some commenters flat out say Michigan knew about the affair months ago. Others think the school only recently got the proof they needed to fire him with cause, which is the only way to avoid paying out millions in buyout money. A few people even suggest that if Moore had beaten Ohio State this year, none of this would be public right now. Whether that's true or just fan frustration will come down to official documents later. But the perception online is clear. People don't see this as a one-day scandal. They see it as the end result of something Michigan had already been wrestling with behind the scenes. Then add in the detail that Moore was reportedly arrested at a church. That one detail alone pushed the internet into full meltdown mode. It made the whole situation feel even more tragic, like a man spiraling at the end of an unraveling story. Fans aren't just talking about a scandal. They're talking about a downfall, a crash out in real time. When the story hit Reddit, X, and college football forums, the reaction wasn't just shock. It was disbelief at the scale of the collapse. Fans started using one phrase over and over again. This is the definition of crashing out. People compared it to Mel Tucker, to Urban Meyer, to Bobby Petrino. But most users said this situation felt different. Tucker's scandal unfolded over months. Petrino's was embarrassing, but it didn't involve police, detainment, or assault allegations in the same 24-hour window. This was a complete implosion in one afternoon. Coaches cheat, scandals happen, careers end, but the sequence here is what made the internet explode. Moore allegedly loses his job and gets detained by police and becomes the center of a criminal investigation, all before midnight. That level of freefall doesn't happen in college football very often. One top comment said, "This is one for the history books. Much more will be out soon." Another comment, "I've never seen a coach crash out this fast." People weren't just reacting to the affair. It was the total shutdown of his career, reputation, and public image in what felt like minutes. The meme posts, the jokes, the GIFs, the internet does what it does. But underneath the comedy, you see genuine shock from fans of every team. How did this happen so fast? This is the wildest downfall I've ever seen in sports. He went from Michigan head coach to Washtenaw County inmate in the same day. That contrast is what made this story viral. But beyond the jokes, some commenters took a more serious tone. They pointed out that Moore essentially threw away a $15 to $20 million future, a national championship-level program, his shot at being Michigan's long-term leader, his reputation as a rising star, and stability for his wife and 3 daughters, all because of an alleged affair, and how he reacted when it came to light. Others online pointed out the tragic angle, that if the rumors about emotional distress and self-harm threats are true, Moore wasn't just crashing professionally, he was breaking down mentally. That's why some people call this the most complete meltdown they've ever seen from a coach. Then you have fans comparing him to Antonio Brown, Scott Frost, Mel Tucker, I'm Udoka, anybody who's ever blown up a career with personal decisions. But most agree. This one is different because of the speed, the police involvement, and the fact Michigan is one of the biggest brands in sports. When something this huge happens at a place like Michigan, one of the most powerful programs in the country, it becomes more than a scandal. It becomes a cultural event, a moment people will remember. The internet isn't calling this the biggest meltdown in years because of one mistake. They're calling it that because everything collapsed at once. Now we get into the part of the story that made this blow up even bigger online, the rumors. And before anything, this needs to be said clearly. These rumors are not confirmed. They are speculation circling Reddit, message boards, and social media. But because this story broke late, and because official police details were limited, rumors filled the gaps fast. The most viral claim came from a Reddit user who said the following, paraphrased, "Rumor is, he told his wife he wanted to kill himself, then showed up at the mistress's house and threatened to hurt her." Again, that is not confirmed. No police report has stated this. No outlet has printed it. But it circulated heavily because multiple users elsewhere said they heard something similar locally. Another commenter doubled down. Word from police is he had a knife when he threatened her. Someone else chimed in, saying they live in the area and heard the same thing pretty directly. Once those posts started gaining traction, other users added more speculative details. Claims that the alleged affair partner was pregnant. Claims the university knew for months. Claims Moore tried to talk to multiple women while traveling. Claims donors knew and pulled. Money claims he was arrested at a church. Claims a wellness check escalated into an arrest. Again, none of this has been confirmed by police or Michigan. These are only rumors. But the sheer amount of speculation made the story snowball. Every comment, every repost, every anonymous "I heard" added fuel to the fire. The internet didn't see a simple coaching scandal. It saw a dramatic, messy, emotional explosion behind the scenes. And because Moore's firing and arrest happened so quickly, people assumed the truth must be even bigger than what was released. One of the most amplified rumor sources was a college football-themed X account that people claim broke the story weeks ago. That account resurfaced the night Moore was arrested and said, "Everything we hinted at is happening. The university and donors knew." This added more momentum to the idea that Michigan had been trying to keep this contained until after key recruiting and signing periods. Other rumors tied to that post included claims Moore's affair partner had already spoken to attorneys. Claims she provided irrefutable documentation. Claims the university was preparing to act for weeks. Claims a major job opening at a top program was already expected. Again, none of these details have been publicly confirmed. But the pattern of rumors makes one thing clear. People online believe something much bigger happened behind the scenes. Whether that's true or not remains to be seen. Police haven't released details. Charges haven't been finalized, and Michigan is staying silent outside of the single-line explanation, inappropriate relationship. The only official facts we have today are Moore was fired for cause police detained him during an assault investigation. He is being held while prosecutors review charges. The incident was not random. No threat to the public investigation ongoing. Everything else, just noise. Loud, dramatic, viral noise. And the louder the rumors got, the more the internet treated this like a full-on tragedy, mixed with a celebrity scandal, mixed with a sports disaster movie. This is the section that grabbed people the most, not the firing, not even the arrest, but the tone of the downfall. Because the way fans describe it, this didn't look like a guy who simply got caught breaking a rule. It looked like a full, emotional collapse. When the news first broke, people expected a standard scandal. Coach has an inappropriate relationship, gets fired, lays low, hires a lawyer, issues an apology. That's the usual blueprint. But the arrest changed the tone instantly, especially when Reddit users started describing the situation as crashing out. One user said, "Yeah, this is the rare instance where the term crashing out fits. This is one for the history books." Another added, "He is a legit crash dummy." People weren't describing a normal firing. They were describing a meltdown, a moment where someone, under massive pressure, makes decisions that spiral fast and out of control. The story hit even harder because Moore has always portrayed himself as emotional, passionate, and deeply invested. Fans remember the tears after the Ohio State win. They remember the raw speeches. They remember the way he stood in for Harbaugh during suspensions, taking that pressure head on. So when this happened, people saw a man who didn't just lose his job. They saw someone whose entire identity suddenly snapped. What amplified the perception of a breakdown was the detail that spread online, again, unconfirmed, that Moore had gone to a church before he was detained. That one detail changed the emotional read of the entire situation. Then Reddit users added fuel, claims he told his wife he wanted to hurt himself, claims he confronted the staffer at her home, claims he had a knife, claims a wellness check turned into an arrest. None of this has been confirmed publicly, but to the internet, it painted the picture of a man who wasn't thinking rationally. Someone overwhelmed by panic, fear, shame, or all three. Even fans who were furious at him found themselves saying the same thing. "This is sad. This feels like a real emotional break." Another commenter put it this way: "It's easy to crash out when the consequences don't feel real until it's too late." And then there was the heartbreak factor. Moore is a father of 3 daughters. He's been married since 2015. He was the first black head coach in Michigan history. He had just coached Michigan to a 9-3 season. He wasn't just losing a job. He was watching a legacy disappear in 24 hours. Whether the rumors are true or not, the emotional weight is undeniable. A rising coach with a huge future suddenly facing the darkest night of his career. When you strip away the headlines, the rumors, the speculation, and the shock, this story leaves behind something even bigger than Michigan football. It leaves a question, the kind of question that splits a fan base, ignites comment sections, and turns a sports scandal into a national conversation. Because when you look at everything that happened in the span of 24 hours, a head coach fired for cause, a police detention hours later, an alleged assault investigation, a program thrown into chaos, a promising career shattered, a family blindsided, a university scrambling to restore stability, a fan base mourning and arguing at the same time, you start to realize that this wasn't just a fall from grace. This was a human unraveling, happening in real time, in front of millions of people who didn't know what to make of it, and still don't. And that's the part nobody can escape. How does a story like this even happen? Is it pressure? Is it ego? Is it power? Is it mental health? Is it a moment of panic that snowballed into disaster? Is it something Michigan ignored for too long? Or is it just one of those tragedies where everything hits at the exact wrong moment? Because, depending on who you ask, this is either a cautionary tale about making reckless choices, a mental health crisis nobody caught early, a university cover-up that finally burst, or a downfall that never should have happened this fast. And here's the part that will keep this story alive long after the bowl game, long after the next hire, long after the rumors settle. We still don't have the full truth. The police haven't released charges. Michigan hasn't shared the investigation details. The staffer at the center of the story hasn't been identified. Moore hasn't spoken publicly. And insiders are still whispering about what really happened behind closed doors. The world has already reacted. But the facts are still coming, which means, for the first time since this story broke, the next chapter isn't in Michigan's hands. It's in the hands of the prosecutors, the police, and whatever comes out next. And when it does, this entire narrative could shift again. So, here's the final question. The one that separates how people see this story. Is Sherrone Moore a man who made the worst mistake of his life? Or a man caught in the middle of something even bigger than anyone realizes yet? Whatever your answer is, drop it in the comments. Because this is one of those scandals where the audience isn't just watching, they're helping shape the conversation. And trust me, the conversation around this story is just getting started.